Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to this community showdown. It's going to be Bretonnia led by Drakons facing off against the Dark Elves, who shall be helmed by the Catholic Alcoholic, and it is going to be, I believe, a Sorceress on a Black Dragon. Very standard. Ever since Malekith got a slight cost increase, she's become the preference. Probably a little bit more cost effective, but Malekith is still way cooler, and his Gaze ability that does clear out infantry is actually quite good against Bretonnia, so argument could be made either way. But nonetheless, for the Bretonnian legions, it's going to be standard, just mass peasants. So the army is going to be peasant mobs backed up by men-at-arms, Grail Relics mixed in there, Enchantress, and some Battle Pilgrims on the reserve. Battle Pilgrims are quite excellent. They trade very well into Bleak Swords and Dread Spears and have good leadership, so they really anchor you where Bretonnia usually struggles in that regard. They will lose to Corsair Infantry, but aside from that, yeah, they trade pretty well. No cavalry in the initial army, but that's very standard for domination mode. Typically, the cavalry is called in as your reserve piece. Now, for the Dark Elves and the Catholic here, it is going to be the Supreme Sorceress of Fire. So I was completely wrong. Supreme Sorceress of Fire running on the ground. So very wide army. He's actually a really, really good elf player. One of the better elf players in our community in general, especially Dark Elves. And he doesn't always play the meta with them. He plays these interesting builds with like Medusas and various other creatures. So we're going to see what he does here. So Sorceress of Fire. The rest of the army is going to be Blackheart Corsairs, backed up by a Sorceress of Shadows, who's going to be using the fat Melkoths, I think? Is that Melkoths? Yeah. So Melkoths is great. It's a very cheap kind of mini Buna type spell. It doesn't do nearly as much damage, but it's very good for what it is. And you just cast this on Grail Knights or Knights of the Realm over and over, and it's cheap and expendable, and you just have a good time. Dark Shards in the secondary. Ooh, I love it. A true Druchii build, you know? The Dark Shards are rad. I mean, these guys pack a huge armor-piercing punch. I know it's only 20 missile strength, but a large portion of that is going to be armor-piercing, and they can melt down pretty much any target they sit on. Dread Spears in the back, and some Blackguard. Blackguard have always been super meta against Bretonnia. Oftentimes in this matchup, you would see like triple Blackguard with a big monster of some sort like Malekith to absorb all the bowfire, and then he would use Soul Stealer, and the Blackguard would just outgrind the entire Bretonnian army. Enchantress with Chalice of Potions, Dwellers Below, as well as her Mortis Engine effect can kind of counter that, but yeah, both are pretty viable. So let's do some fast forwarding here while the two armies posture up and get ready to do glorious battle. So here they go. Yeah, so they're moving, and you can see the first wave of Bleak Swords is going to move up on the point to try and contest that. But unfortunately for the Dark Elves, the objective does go to the Bretonnians out of the gate. Back objective taken as well. So it is going to be on the Dark Elves here to advance up with their army and engage the Bretonnian legions. Kind of just looks like a land battle right now, like two armies squaring up. But I guess that was the idea for domination, which is to kind of get people to fight and engage a little bit quicker. And Knights Errant is the first call in here. Knights Errant, a solid unit, good at killing chaff, very good, you know, kind of rear charging into, you know, Bleak Swords, Dread Spears, also okay against Corsairs, but they can dive onto the Dark Shards in the secondary line as well. But are the Dark Shards shielded? Yes, they are. So they have Silver Shield, so the Peasant Archers probably won't be super effective at killing them here. Army is going to be moving up a little bit more, being very, very cagey, as now the Dark Shards are going to start unleashing their first volleys. Peasants eating some fat crossbow bolts right to the face. What's not to love? Knights Errant going to be flanking through the wood line, so we do see Drakons coming around the side to look for those goodies. And I have no man. That is a huge Bretonnian army. They got 28 units on the battlefield right now. Absolutely insane. Bretonnian tabletop has been really fun to watch. They have some cool rules, like their lance formation, and their characters are very, very powerful. Objective here does go to the Druchii, so the Bretonnians opt to pull back. They probably weren't happy with their army comp and wanted to consolidate their cavalry, so I think that was what it was. The Knights Errant here, and they wanted to wait till these guys got in position back here before they engage, and now they're going to move up and try and pull the infantry of the Dark Elves forward, exposing the Dark Shards potentially, although Catholic here does have some good units defending. And Dark Elves have always been, the Bretonnian Dark Elf matchup's always been very fun. Koldo Knights trade very well into Bretonnian cavalry, but, you know, Grail Knights and things like that with their new armor piercing can certainly beat them, but still very, very good. So the Unwashed Legions moving forward. Bleak Swords ready to butcher some of these untrained peasants. Classic. And for the Enchantress, I think I just saw Earthblood there, and Flesh to the Stone too. That's pretty good. So Fizz-Res. So if you have a Knight of the Realm battling like a Cold One Knight or something, you can give them this, and they'll probably end up winning that fight because of this buff. So that's like 20 seconds of them taking barely any damage, which is incredibly nice. Knights Errant on each side, and man, this is a swarm, dude. You know, I thought the Greenskin armies were big, but Bretonnia knows how to field massive amounts of untrained soldiers and just let them get massacred. It's great. So Peasant Mobs obviously losing out in combat in the front, but that's to be expected. Enchantress going to be moving into the secondary here. Catholics, Cold One Knights in the back are just waiting to protect the Dark Shards. And we do see, look at this, he's actually swarming through and trying to get in with the Men-at-Arms. So some of them do break formation and are able to get on top of the Dark Shards. However, many of them are stuck in combat, so if the Dark Shards just move back, they're going to get tethered back to their core units and not be able to get through. So Burning Head is very excellent against this swarm. He's probably just looking for an opportunity to get some Battle Pilgrims. Bretonnian Cavalry coming from the sides. So here comes the first charge. going to be hammering into the side of these dread swords, or dread swords, bleak swords. There's always dread or bleak or dark, something kind of edgy in that nature here for the Dark Elves, of course. Nice burning head, though. Excuse me, got something caught in my throat there. It does run through the men-at-arms, also able to get on top of the battle pilgrims. Archers trading in, but not doing a ton of damage, shooting into the dark shards, it would appear. Some of them shooting into the frontliners, but the silver shields are holding up well. On the flank, we do get a unit of Blackguard being called in, so I believe that's the second one. We got one Blackguard unit here and one here, and this Blackguard is going to be able to easily hold all these units. They are an excellent, excellent unit. And here we do see the Blackguard retreating. So Chalice of Potions was coming down, and they are going to be forced back. A good dodge. If you don't dodge that, you're going to pay the ultimate price. So really, the Dark Elves are just being super cautious, defending their secondary line, using the Dark Shards to saturate into the Foot Squires and the higher quality units. And we see a Foot Squire unit getting absolutely melted here, just taken to Pound Town by all of these Dark Shards. And the Battle Pilgrims and Men-at-Arms do see this, and they try and surge past the Blackguard. They might be able to get through. Another elite unit of Blackguard is going to be coming in to screen out the Dark Shards. And how many are on the battlefield now in total? We got 1, we got 2, and I think 3. There's like 2 or 3 of them on the field at the moment. So Fey Enchantress and company trying to overwhelm the flank and certainly doing a decent job. Knights Errants running over the Blackheart Corsairs, and just the sheer numbers of Men-at-Arms and Battle Pilgrims will probably end up winning that fight. And there is going to be a Melkoth's going down to the Grail Knights in tandem with an Earthblood, so Earthblood should counteract that relatively well. Here in the back, we do see the Dark Shards still trading very solid. I would imagine about 500 value on these guys, only 200. I guess they've been shooting mostly peasants, so it's no surprises. So now Dark Elves going to be getting Murderous prowess for 90 seconds, so it's very good. Leadership, melee attack, vigor. It's an incredibly good buff. So this is the window for the Dark Elves to kind of push back, and you guys will probably notice an ebb and a flow as it pertains to the damage value now that the Dark Elves have this big army-wide buff, right? And yeah, Dreadspear's not doing bad. Corsair Infantry grinding through a lot of the Battle Pilgrims and Bretonnian Chaff units. And I think the Dark Elves are starting to get back in this game with a little bit of momentum. They obviously have lost out on the objectives, but it seems like they're starting to uptrade a little bit, although they still are down by about 400 value. So hard to say. Here in the back, we do see the Knights Errant running over the Dread Shards. We'll call them Dread Shards for now, but for the Dark Shards. But Golden Knight's very, very quick to respond here. And man, the Bretonnians brought so much stuff, dude. This is just the Bretonnian tide. My God, they have so many units. Peasants just wasting away on all these bad boys, or wasting on them with all those poison arrows, and God knows where those Bretonnian peasants dip those arrows. You know, it could be anywhere. Burning Head, once again, cooking some peasants, and the Blackguard might eventually be able to break through this unwashed mass. You can see the backfield is this area, the center mass is starting to kind of waver a little bit as it pertains to their momentum. And the Blackguard units have now gotten in combat. You can see the value starting to equalize. The Dark Elves have caught up. The Murderous prowess, I believe, still in effect for a little bit longer, for another 13 seconds. So that certainly helped them to catch up, and it also replenishes their vigor, right? So these Blackguard, which have been fighting the entire time, are basically fresh because of that Murderous prowess. Really, really good ability, super underrated. A little bit harder to pull off in land battle because, you know, your opponent, if they're really cagey, can avoid you while it's active, but in Dom, typically you have to be perpetually fighting on the objectives. It's a little bit harder to disengage. So Halberd boys cutting through the Grail Knights. Flesh to Stone active, giving them a little bit of ward save, so that's a nice little gimme there. And we do get Knights of the Realm piling in to help, but they don't really get a good charge. They kind of charge into a spear unit, which was saturated by peasants, so they're not quite able to just butter the bread of that unit outright. Triple peasant archers here shooting into Blackguard, which is very good. Blackguard are heavily armored, but they don't have any shields. So being able to pop into the face of these guys is, I would say, very good, even though they have armor, just wasting them. In the backfield, a couple Dark Riders with repeater crossbows get called in, and the Knights Errant do try and dive the Dark Shards, but the Golden Knights proving to be one of the better defensive cap units here. Bretonnia might go for a back objective theft. We could certainly see that. They do have the mobility advantage, and here we do see the Dread Spears looking to be in bad shape. So yeah, 2 Knights of the Realm and a Spearman. That would be a really good play. The Dark Elves have a very static army. With the triple elite infantry unit, they don't seem to be able to kind of move around too well. Looking at the points, though, it is almost a triple cap situation. It's getting a little bit dicey in that regard. The Dark Elves do have, I believe, the middle now. No, they're about to take it. It's really, really close. It does flip to the Dark Elves, and now the Dark Elves have the back objective as well. So as it currently stands, if the objectives and the status quo remains the exact same, the Dark Elves would win on the 2 right now. It'd be very, very close, but they still would win because it's not more than double. So Dark Shard fire from the Dark Riders with their repeater crossbows, able to tee off into the Knights of the Realm, and that's a really good KG play by Drakons, realizing the middle kind of static fight is starting to go in the favor of the Druki, the card he's chosen here, and they are able to cut through the Foot Squires, and Archers running a little bit low on the Bretonnian Peasants, the heavy armor of the Blackguard paying huge dues. But yeah, use your huge mobile blob and just snake objectives, and you know, try and win in that regard. Force your opponent's static army to move, and live long and prosper. Unsummon's going down a Knights Errant, players doing a little bit of housekeeping. The Sorceress is helping out in melee where she can. Battle Pilgrims Finally going to be breaking negative 23 leadership, and the sorceress. Oh yeah, sorceress. Yeah, so Burning Head and Melkoth. So there's the double sorcerer character there, which I forgot to articulate earlier. Blackguard's still hanging out on this point pretty well. Value is close, but with healing taken into account, Bretonnia may be slightly ahead on value. It's kind of hard to tell, but they've cast a couple Earthblood, so I would say they're probably pretty darn close. And the Druchii being forced back here a little bit. That Withering Fire from the hordes of peasant archers doing some good work. 71 models on these Blackguard, 51 right here. They are hearing no bells whatsoever. I would imagine this Melkoth's caster has good value too. Yeah, about 700-800 value from spamming Melkoths on all the Bretonnia Knights. So Dark Elves do reclaim the backfield objective. Are able to get that one, so now they have their 2-cap once again. Probably just going to park some, Spears or Blackguard back here, but it looks like they're going to move back to the middle to make sure they don't lose that. And maybe a Burning Head down here. If you get these 2 peasant units, that would be pretty good value. Supreme Sorceress trying to take down the Grail Relic, and she is on a little Hellsteed thing. They're not the worst fighters. I mean, they do have 39 melee attack, and Grail Relics are god-awful in melee, right? So she should be able to win that eventually. But the Fey Enchantress does re-secure the middle objective, getting very, very dodgy here, as objective number 2 does go to the forces of the Lady, as a massive wave of Bretonnia Knights come in, and they scream across to engage against the Cold One Knights. And did I see Dreaded Dread Knights there as well? Yeah, we got Dread Knights in here. All right, Dread Knights up to about 1,100 value. But look at that beautiful Flesh to Stone. That is so good. Really, really nice strategy here by Draken. So Flesh to Stone is going to be giving him 60% Fizz Res. Crazy, crazy strong. Because none of these units do magic damage, right? Dark Elves got their Repeater Crossbows in position, ready to support, and the Bretonnian Cavalry are going to be pulling back. And now it's getting a little bit cagey as it pertains to points. So we do have 2 units of Cold One Knights who have butchered through the backfield. So Dark Elves might be able to get some of this reserve momentum coming in and start to win this middle fight. Blackguard fighting against Knights of the Realm and Fey Enchantress is pretty cost effective for the Druchii with the Golden Knights as well. However, the Mortis Engine from the Fey is going to be adding up, and draining down those elite units is obviously very, very juicy. I think Dark Elves are going to have to make a play for the back objective somehow. They might need to send something back here. On the backside, we do see some healthy Knights of the Realm chasing down these Dark Riders. So Druchii definitely need to get something here to hold this point. They don't really have a whole lot. Yeah, Drakens is really on the hunt here. These boys are running for the hills. So as far as the objectives go, 1 is belonged to Bretonnia, 2 is going to be owned by Bretonnia, and 3 is going to be owned by the Druchii for now, as the Dark Riders are just kind of taking these Knights of the Realm for a little bit of a run around here. Cold One Knights come in the flank, and they do get a decent engagement versus some Knights Errant, which they have a very favored fight with, and Melkoth's going down on them as well. Dark Elves are going to have to get this point quickly, though. They're really running out of time. And the Bretonnia still has this nice anchor. So this battle, this Grail Relic is keeping so many of these units here that would otherwise have routed like a long time ago. Their leadership is 16, so they would have probably been close to breaking. Like, it would just be bad news bears, right? Golden Knights here getting countercharged by Knights Errant with the favor of the Fey, putting up to 71 melee attack, which is super, super good. Call-ins for both players are going to be more Cold One Riders, and for the forces of Bretonnia, they're going to be sending some of the Men-at-Arms over to the far side to jump on top of Objective 1, so we'll see how that goes for them. And I don't know if the Dark Elves are going to have enough time for this one, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be kind of tight. It's been a good, scrappy game so far, for sure. Golden Knights chewing away into the Knights Errant. And they do, I believe, have the Primal Instincts, which is really good. So when they rampage, when they're low health, they get like melee attack and all sorts of good stats. Golden Knights are an amazing unit, just like they are in Tabletop. Yep, more Cold One Knights on the way in. Middle objective could be flipping here. We do see it still in the clutches of Bretonnia. A couple Dark Elves are making their way. Yeah, it looks like it's still theirs. And yeah, Bretonnia really able to reinforce well. And you can see the dreaded, Mordor, the Helm's Deep coming here. Yeah, so they're moving for the back objective just to make sure it doesn't get ninja'd in the 4th quarter. And now we have a Wizard duel. Looks like the Supreme Sorcerers duking it out with the Fey Enchantress. But I think Drakens has probably got this one in the bag here, as he has been able to hold it down. Cold One Knights riding all over the place. And yeah, Blackheart Corsairs hustling up. Bleak Swords on the way as well. Dark Rider Repeater Crossbows, but I think it's going to be too little too late. The middle objective was in flux there for a moment, but it looks like it has been stabilized. The value is too close. Catholic's up by a little bit, but with healing, it's probably a dead even game, actually. I would say that 1,000 value difference can easily be compensated for by the Fey Enchantress Earthbloods, although she's been casting a ton of Flesh to Stone. Not as many healing abilities, maybe we've seen like 2 of those. But yeah, I think that's going to be, well, I know it's going to be GG. There's only a couple seconds left. But yeah, that was a fun match. Good back and forth. We got to see the Blackguard grind it out. But the Bretonnian mobility taking advantage of some of the weaker Dark Elf positions, taking those key points and closing it out. So 600 value here. Dark Shards paid for themselves. Love to see it. And these guys, 800, 2,000 value on you. Dread Knights did good. I mean, yeah, most of the Dark Elf Cavalry paid for themselves. And Bretonnia, yeah, Grail Knights did fine. It was definitely, they just took advantage of the battlefield and really played that game. In terms of trading, they were actually dead even, I would say. But GG, well played to these 2 mighty champions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you on the other side.